这边呢是一个最高学府教育局。
So it's fitting that I'm here in the Confucius Temple Museum today. Confucianism is not a religion. It's a kind of way of life, I think, and it's the basis of Chinese society. I've never been one for religion. I am on a spiritual journey to find where I fit in that whole faith thing. I'm still searching. One thing for me is the destructive nature of some of the religions that I get exposed to and you get exposed to. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Trump election. Maybe if you're well read, you might get the connection of why I'm here in the Confucius Temple and Museum and reflecting on the American political system, presidents, Trump, and now that I can get sight of his cabinet, I'm beginning to get concerned for the future. Anyway, join me if you want to understand what I'm talking about. So, Donald Trump won the election, and I am surprised, but I'm not surprised. I actually thought he would win it because I knew Kamala Harris was an awful candidate, and I said that on a previous video that I uploaded a couple of months back. But to be honest, I am surprised that the result turned out the way it was because I thought the establishment would have won it over. I thought they may have pushed it for Harris, but then it is known that powerful, smart and wealthy people always hedge their bets. So read into that what you may. But with Donald Trump's latest picks for his cabinet, it is very clear to me that a lot of the people that voted for Trump fell for the whole political bait and switch. And for that reason, I worry about the future of this sensible world because I can feel it in my water. Something ain't quite right. So Donald Trump, he would not be my choice, but it turns out what he was selling resonated with the American people, and I think what he was selling was change, not your Obama style change that in the end up wasn't really any change. I think what people all over the Western world are actually getting fed up with is the daily experience that they go through, an experience that I believe has been eroded by corporations, institutions, media, politicians, and I think people are so fed up that they now want the systems that hold everything together dismantled and built to reflect more of of what they actually want. And it is going to be interesting because for me, I do think that's how China feels. That's how it feels to me. It's set up to give the majority of people what they want, and although the fringe groups are heard and acknowledged, they are never given absolute voice over the majority. The only difference between China and America, as far as I can see, is that China is going about their business in an inclusive and peaceful way. America, the country that is supposedly the champion of the very idea of freedom, free speech, and inclusion and diversity, has now got a funny way of demonstrating that. And with Donald Trump and what is influencing him and his latest political choices, his current no longer leader of the free world stances that he's taking, then I think the world will arrive at the same conclusion that I am beginning to arrive at and realise, and that is America, the political system, the political class, is full of hypocrisy. Yeah. Will things ever change? To be honest, I don't think so, but I hold hope. Interesting enough, I do think what most presidential candidates promise, but they actually never deliver on, is this idea of change. It's what they always say. They even say that in the UK, the current Labour Party, even in Europe, the new party is always saying, we are the party of change. And guess what? Nothing much changes. I do kind of think it's an impossible task to deliver on that idea of change, because you're working against a system that is so powerful in ways that we could never absolutely understand or even imagine. So how do you change anything if it's so powerful? I kind of think Donald Trump is so reckless and feckless that he might just change stuff. He might just tear everything down, a ton of stuff, unsettle the system and instigate some real change. Possibly, in my opinion, he would do that by default and not actually by design. And it might not be the change that people were actually voting for.
So high I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
So, get comfortable here. Good walk around. So here's my experience of presidents over my lifetime, and when I look back, what they have meant to me. But what I do see with a president of the United States is a figurehead that sits on top of a system that they often have to bow down to. So presidents in my lifetime, I should have been born under a JFK presidency, but he was assassinated. So I was born under Lyndon B. Johnson. He was president when I was born. Do not know much about him, but I know he benefited from JFK's assassination, and he was very tight with the CIA. Then there was Nixon. Again, do not know much about President Nixon. I was too young, but I do think when bank robbers in Hollywood, in the movies in Hollywood, wear a Nixon mask when robbing a bank, it does somehow look quite fitting.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and please don't forget to vote. I'm not a crook.
Then there was Gerald Ford, who took over from Nixon when Nixon resigned. Do not know much about him. Do not know anything about him. In fact, I think he had a terrible economy. I think. If anybody knows, let me know. Then we had Jimmy Carter. Now, I remember him. He was the kind of first one I kind of remember. He was a one-term president, just like Biden. I do remember under Jimmy Carter there was some energy crisis, and then he had a push for some peace on some of the issues that were about at that time. Not sure if peace was a popular position back then, but it's never really a popular position with American foreign policy. Jimmy Carter, still alive to this day, turned out an okay man, I think. Now, the first real president that I do remember was Reagan, because he was always associated with Margaret Thatcher, who was the Prime Minister in the UK. And both of them were changing things in a neoconservative way. Margaret Thatcher was not popular in Scotland, so I was not a fan. The other thing that I remember about Reagan was that he was the cornerstone of a programme on television when I was growing up that involved puppets, and Reagan's puppet was forever losing his mind. I mean, honestly, it would fall out.
Ed?
What?
Don't worry about the brain, Ed.
Oh.
I feel so much better without it.
The programme was called Spitting Image, and it was a huge, massive success back in the day. Very, very funny. We don't kind of have that satirical programme these days. Nothing really with that kind of bite. I do wonder why.
And there's a present from Mrs. Thatcher, sir.
A present from Great Britain? What is it?
It's Great Britain.
Oh, the meanie. She gave me that last year.
So after that, we had George H.W. Bush, the CIA man. I mean that. Check into his political background and you'll see he was very well connected. One of Lyndon B. Johnson's boys. And he actually was involved in some of the investigation into JFK. Anyway, I remember him for coming to the aid of Kuwait. But in doing so, I remember bombing the crap out of a retreating army on the highway of death. And I'm pretty sure that you're not allowed to bomb a retreating army. I think it's in the rules of war, the rules of engagement of war. But then, do the rules of engagement for war apply to America? I'm never sure. Yeah, there is that. Yeah, there is that. So then we had Clinton, and for me, he was a shiny young president, and I thought he looked cool, spoke well, very well. I remember him for bombing Yugoslavia and also having sexual relationships with a cigar thing. Anyway, I do know he made a shit ton of money on the back of his presidency. He was worth $1.3 million when he started his presidency, and to this date, Clinton, both of them, him and his wife, they're worth approximately $241 million. By the way, all this is searchable, so look it up. So after Clinton, we had the other Bush, George W. Bush, a bit of a clownish man in a likeable kind of way, did have a dubious history. He was called up at the moment on 9/11, an awful thing. He did have his moment to step into, but at that time he dragged everyone into a war or two based on very dodgy weapons of mass destruction information. And that was when I began to realise that maybe governments are not that trustworthy. And by the way, he started his term worth $20 million and he's now worth $40 million. So it seems he needs to speak to Obama and Clinton. I'll come to Obama in a minute. Or even Nancy Pelosi. She's another superstar of a wealth accumulation. So yeah, Obama. Next, stormed in Obama after Bush. Lots of hope, 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 hope everywhere. Hope and hope. And I thought, yep, this is the real deal. He wasn't. He bailed out the banks. A lot of people lost their homes, their wealth. And he also bombed a lot of countries. He used a lot of drones to do that. And maybe he is, or should be known as the father of drone warfare, like maybe Enola Gay is to Oppenheimer. Anyway, just a thought. On this idea, by the way, of bailing out the banks, that was the first time I really went in deep on investigating a subject and what actually happened. If you took the time to dig into, then you would be left, like me, asking the same questions that I was left asking. And that was, I mean, they did what? And not one of them went to jail or suffered any real consequence. And they actually ended up making money in the long term. And actually, like Clinton, Obama, who is now worth $70 million, started his time in office on a net worth of 1.3 million, similar to Clinton. And I think it was about this time in my life when I really began to see the light. Next up was Donald Trump. So, Donald Trump. So what can you say about Mr. President Donald Trump? He was predicted to be president by The Simpsons, and often at times for me I could see Homer Simpson in real form live when I would watch and listen to Donald Trump. The guy, he had no filter, has no filter. Anyway, we had the whole experience under Trump the first time, and it was funny at times, scary funny, and that Trump had the pandemic to deal with, and well, that was a moment he was found wanting. Lungs and bleach was a gobsmacking moment for me, one of the many I have to say. Anyway, America has a very strange recall when it comes to Donald Trump's first time in office, and I just cannot get my head around what they thought he was first time around. So then came Biden. He will have one term, one single term, and in that time, in my opinion, he wrecked Europe, the Middle East, pushed a number of countries to become allies that are now standing strong against America's one nation rule. Biden spent a whole ton of cash on stuff which is still generating debt for America, and I'm not sure if they will ever pay it off. Time will tell. He screwed the economy for many families, didn't grasp the border issue, and he aged so quickly in the role that he had to spend a lot of time and energy hiding the fact that he was getting old, until he could no longer hide it, and the Democrats had to come clean. And then in that last moment, he stuffed the Democrats with Harris as a candidate. Now that was a masterstroke of revenge, because they removed him, if you ask me. Oh, and he did the single most stupid thing next to Brexit that I've ever seen a country do, and that was when he weaponised the dollar. I mean, it is a privilege to be the owner of the world's currency, a massive advantage. But as Superman's Uncle Ben would say, with great power comes great responsibility. And Biden, for me, and his foreign policy was a disaster of a president, and his legacy will not be kind.
But just because you can beat him up doesn't give you the right to. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
This time around, the presidential election was contested by really two parties, or one party. But I think within that, the Democrats kept saying democracy was on the ballot. But this idea of democracy has many different sides. And I think what the people in America were saying was that the version of democracy being peddled by the Democrats was not the version that they wanted. I think the people, they're now screaming really for change. And if you look at how they're voting, it is loud and clear now that Trump has the House, the Senate, the presidency, and also the Supreme Court, and he holds all the cards, and it's loud and clear that when they voted for that, they were sending a signal. And it is now a very unique situation that he has all the cards. And we're going to have to work very, very hard to understand what really is going on, because I do think people no longer trust politicians, celebrities, the elites, the media, and the institutions. No idea why. The system we all grew up with has lost that trust, and for that reason, we are in for a very terrifying, interesting few years. So what is next? To be honest, I have no idea, but I do think and fear that there is conflict on the horizon. And if you're not paying attention, you should be, and you should be encouraging your family and friends to get involved. The world needs us to focus on stopping this car crash of human doing that could end up causing some real damage to the world. I do think, and I like this idea of citizen journalism, and I think that has helped people learn and understand so much more than just the surface of political conversations. And it is for that reason I believe everyday people now push back against the system much more than ever, but they're going to go after that. Yeah, but it's always going to be a case of walking a very tight rope of badly informed opinions and manipulated information when it comes to trying to find reliable news sources. And artificial intelligence is going to make it almost impossible in the future. So, who do you trust?
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, 'cause every time I
So yeah, there is that question of who do you trust? And to be honest, I have no idea. But I would say cast your net wide when it comes to looking for information. For me, China would have always been a mystery if I had not came here and lived here. And the reason why I share my experiences here on YouTube is because I want other people to see the reality of life. And in doing so, I hope that people might just push back against this idea of conflict that the powers that be seem to be brewing. In a sense, I think I am a bit of a citizen journalist. So to finish this video, I always said 2025 is going to be a very, very scary year, economically and politically, but I'm very, very happy to be wrong on this. We human species, we're all exhausted from war, and I do think we need more peace. Even though Trump says he wants less war, I'm not sure that he will be able to deliver on that. And now that I see his cabinet picks, I'm not sure that the people he is surrounding himself with have that same mindset. If, like me, you want more peace and in turn more stability and greater distribution of wealth, then I think we need to start to look elsewhere for that role model. And I would urge you to look east. I do forever remain hopeful that we can find more peace. This is me in a very contemplative mood, saying to you, look after yourself, your family, and your community. Take care. Peace out. Catch you soon.
Be with you, Ed.
Mr. President, may God be with you. I'll have 2 eggs over medium, some juice, and a cup of coffee. Oh, and cancel that World War, will you?